The world is watching as a decades-long partnership teeters on the brink. In October 2025, Japan halted trade with the United States, a direct response to new tariffs imposed by President Trump. Tokyo's demand, lift the tariffs or the economic arteries connecting two of the world's largest economies, stay severed. This isn't just a trade spat, it's a test of a cornerstone alliance in the post-war global order. The crisis is the result of months of fraught negotiations and a fragile, politically driven trade agreement. Japan's move signals a complete loss of faith in the deal's fairness, turning a diplomatic win into a source of deep international friction. The standoff has sent shockwaves through global markets, highlighting a new era of transactional diplomacy. For Japan, the tariffs threaten its manufacturing base. For the US, the trade halt jeopardizes critical supply chains. Economic weapons cut both ways. There may be no winners, only varying degrees of loss. The coming weeks will determine if this rupture can be mended or if it marks the start of a prolonged economic conflict. The stability of the global economic system hangs in the balance. The immediate catalyst for this crisis is the set of tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. The new framework slapped a 15% baseline tariff on a wide range of Japanese imports, from electronics to machine components. The tariff, retroactive to August 2025, created chaos for importers and manufacturers. Steel and aluminum were excluded from the deal, remaining subject to punishing 50% tariffs, highlighting the targeted nature of US strategy. Reports of misapplied tariffs and unconfirmed promises of refunds deepen mistrust. In exchange, Japan agreed to major purchases of US agricultural goods, including $8 billion annually in corn, soybeans, and bioethanol, plus a 75% increase in US rice imports. But for Japanese manufacturers, the deal felt lopsided. Agricultural concessions offered little relief to those hit hardest by tariffs. The agreement's political, non-binding nature made it fragile and dependent on trust. With disputes over implementation and fairness, that trust has evaporated. Japan's halt in trade is a declaration that a framework built on unstable foundations is no longer tenable. The world is now forced back to the drawing board. The lesson: without robust enforcement and mutual benefit, even landmark deals can collapse overnight. The stakes for global trade have never been clearer. The automotive sector, the crown jewel of Japan's export economy, sits at the epicenter of this dispute. The new 15% US tariff on Japanese cars and parts is a major blow, threatening decades of investment and market development. Japan agreed to ease entry for US cars, including dropping some safety tests, but critics at home saw this as capitulation. The trade-off seemed lopsided. US automakers gained, while Japan's largest export sector suffered. The impact ripples through supply chains, raising costs for both Japanese and American manufacturers. In a globally integrated industry, broad tariffs inflict collateral damage on both sides. Neither side is satisfied. The US claims a win for domestic industry, while Japan faces a painful setback. The auto sector's impasse is a microcosm of the deal's failure. Transactional politics trumped economic reality. The result: a grinding halt to one of the world's most important trading relationships. A centerpiece of the July agreement was Japan's pledge to invest $550 billion in strategic US projects, semiconductors, AI, renewables, and more. On paper, it was a massive vote of confidence in the US economy, but a fundamental dispute erupted. President Trump claimed the US would control the fund and keep 90% of profits, while Japan insisted the money would be managed by Japanese banks, with profits returning home. US officials threatened to hike tariffs if Trump wasn't satisfied with the fund's use, turning the investment into a bargaining chip. Tokyo saw this as a breach of faith, deepening mistrust. The two sides never agreed on what the investment meant: collaboration or leverage. What should have been a symbol of partnership became a source of discord. The ambiguity poisoned goodwill and helped unravel the entire deal. The investment dispute is now a cautionary tale of how unclear terms can destroy trust. Every trade action creates winners and losers, and the US-Japan standoff is no exception. US farmers initially benefited from Japan's commitment to buy billions in American crops and expand market access for beef, pork, and wine. But Japanese exporters and U.S. importers of Japanese goods were hit hard by the new tariffs, facing higher costs and shrinking profits. Japan's export-reliant economy saw shipments to the U.S. fall nearly 14% in August 2025, the fifth straight month of decline. With $231.8 billion in annual trade now frozen, the pain is spreading to both sides. Even U.S. farmers now risk losing a vital market as trade halts. Trade wars are easy to start, but their ripple effects are hard to contain. In the end, almost everyone loses. This trade impasse is as much about politics and personalities as economics. Japan's chief negotiator, Ryoshi Akazawa, faced immense pressure to strike a deal with President Trump, known for his aggressive tactics. Trump's America First doctrine drove the U.S. side, prioritizing quick wins over long-term stability. The deal's focus on agricultural gains and manufacturing pain reflects Trump's transactional worldview. Meanwhile, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, weakened by political losses, had little leverage to negotiate or sell concessions at home. The halt in trade is both an economic and political act of defiance from a government with little left to lose. The personal dynamics and political calculations of these leaders shaped both the deal's creation and its collapse. The result, a fragile agreement, doomed by expediency and unequal pressure. Japan's decision to halt trade with the U.S. is a watershed moment, rewriting the rules of global commerce. The future hinges on whether Washington will step back from coercion and pursue genuine negotiation. Immediate de-escalation is needed. Lifting tariffs could reopen talks. Any new deal must be robust, transparent, and mutually respected, with clear terms on autos and investment. This crisis exposes the fragility of global supply chains and the dangers of protectionism. The world is watching to see if diplomacy and compromise can prevail over brinkmanship. The U.S.-Japan relationship is too valuable to sacrifice for short-term political gain. The hope that statesmanship will steer both nations back to shared prosperity and stability.